Lucy is a teacher and mother of two. She founded the charity, the Pendsey Trust, in 2013 after visiting India. It is a small volunteer-run charity which helps children and young adults with type 1 in the Nagpur area of India. It provides healthcare and educational scholarships to enable these children to thrive who may otherwise not survive. It gives them the assistance they need so they can support themselves and their medical needs as they grow into adulthood. So, welcome, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I was going to say, I sponsor a child through the Pendsey Trust, so have had messages from Lucy for years and years, and I've never spoken to you.
I know, I was just thinking the same. It's kind of strange to put a voice to the name.
I know. Well, we will start off with a very quick, a bit of a sort of warming up opener, just things. We call it 90 seconds. Usually lasts a little longer, but we'll sort of whiz through it. So I'm going to start. We already know your name and we know you're a teacher. So do you have diabetes yourself, or what's your connection?
No, and this is, we're trying to stay within 90 seconds because I just talk and talk. So please just tell me to shut up
Between
when
us,
you
we're
want me to.
doomed.
Oh no. Yeah, so kind of the way I came to this was really strange in that I was a trainee journalist, and I won a place to go, a wild story, when back when life was very fun before children. I won a place to go to something called the International Development Days and do some reporting for the UK. And I ended up walking into a little seminar which was about type 1 diabetes in the developing world. And my cousin, who she was much younger at that point, she was diagnosed when she was 4, and so I was just absolutely hooked because I knew how hard things were for her, and I hadn't even imagined what it would be like in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my personal link to type 1 diabetes.
Oh, well, we will carry on with that very shortly. In fact, no, we're just going to carry on with the main theme. So you'd heard this lecture, and we're
Yeah.
interested because you do have like a family connection.
Yeah, exactly. So it was there were lots of other kind of very cliched talks about, children working on cotton plantations and such other kind of very covered developing world stories.
Mm-hmm.
It was a kind of, but the whole theme of the conference was about the developing world and some of the key challenges emerging. And I went and I walked in, and honestly, I kid you not, all the other rooms were massive and packed with journalists. And I walked in and was basically about 3 people in there in a tiny room, and it was obviously by far the most compelling little talk which was going on at the whole conference, in my opinion, anyway. And so off the back of that, I went away and did lots and lots of research and just got completely hooked by the whole thing, and I'd seen all the challenges which my cousin was facing, but then kind of multiplying that of how hard it would be
Yeah.
in a context where lots of the facilities we have available here are not available. I just thought it was really, really interesting.
It, I'm sort of knowing the story, so I could jump ahead at this point. And I agree with you because I think I know myself. It's one of those when I read who we will get on to Dr. Pendsey in a bit, but Dr. Pendsey works in India and helped, and he wrote a paper, didn't he, about, was it called Where Have All the Girls Gone?
Exactly. Where have all the girls gone? It's
And
very
I remember
haunting.
this is years ago. I happened upon it, and what it well, I'll sort of praise it, and I'm sure you know better than me. Was the girls that were diagnosed, if it was a family that were economically challenged, purchasing insulin, because that's what you'd need to do in India, could cost over half the family budget. And it's just not economically viable if you've got a whole family with children. It's an awful decision and awful to say it, but that child becomes a liability, which it sounds horrible thing. And it was sort of like so eye-opening, because even though it happens, you just never think about it. Or do you know it happens? You can imagine it would happen. And it was how he had, what he was doing to make sure that these girls didn't disappear. Which
exactly this, and it's specifically girls, which is a really big part of what Dr. Pendsey's work was, and that was the title of Where Have All the Girls Gone? Because actually, the poor families in India, nobody wants a daughter because you have to pay a dowry for them. So then once you add into that, okay, you're going to have to pay a dowry, and you're also going to have to pay. Actually, it can be where it used to be as much as 3/4 of the poor family's income would have been the cost of incident. You know, they had to make the really difficult economic choice, and that's what inspired him to set up his charity out there, which was the death of 2 young girls who were both brought to his doorstep, sort of on the verge of death. One of them did die, and then the other family, he told them what they needed to do and sent them off, and they actually made the decision to withdraw insulin, which is, I mean, absolutely harrowing. And you know, he was distraught. They made the decision to withhold insulin because they didn't feel that they were going to be able to fulfill that need of their daughter. And that sort of those 2 deaths of those 2 little girls were what inspired his life's work.
Yes, and through that he set up an organisation called the Dream Trust.
Yeah, exactly.
And is it, when you were at the original talk, was that about the Dream Trust, or did you independently find out about that
No, yeah, not
organisation and
at
visit?
all. It was a much more kind of generalized talk about what some of the challenges were in sort of lower resource countries. And then I just went away and started zooming around, and I think I found the article which we just spoke about.
Yeah.
And I think that led me to his work. And I don't know if any of you have come across her on Twitter or if she's ever been on these chats, but there's a lady called Mary Hayes, who I think is fairly prominent on Twitter, and she was a diabetes nurse, and she'd actually been out to visit Dr. Pendsey, and that this this is back in the good old days. What, I'm trying to think how many years ago now, sort of like 14 years ago, and things were still a bit more patchy in terms of international travel. And I honestly just emailed her and said, "Oh, I can see you've been out to visit this guy. Is he legit? Does he exist?" And she said, "Yeah, no, he's great. Go and visit him." And so, I sent off this email. I was very young and naive at this point, 21-year-old doing my journalism masters, and said, "Oh, can I come and visit you?" And Dr. Pendsey, being the charismatic, very sort of hospitable guy that he was like, "Yes, come, please come and see us." And off I went. I managed to get a grant to go from, Jon Snow, the TV presenter. He was doing grants for young journalists, believe it or not. So I've got a nice photo of me looking very goofy with him. But he funded me to go out there and make a radio documentary about Dr. Pendsey and his work.
Which is very interesting, and he did do amazing work, didn't he? Because through the Dream Trust, he provided not only medical support for these children, but one of his things was you sort of need to give them educational grants or help them become economically stable.
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge for me. I think I was completely blown away because I had thought a lot about the medical side of it, but actually when I got there, what I saw was his vision. And he was super entrepreneurial. He was, he was just always a problem solving, and he wasn't just really doing the charity of sort of just giving out medication. That it is such an incredible setup. The those children who were coming in were also, their families were getting counselling to help them be able to live in a healthy way. Loads and loads of support. They were getting grants so they could go to school. They were getting grants so they could get public transport to school. They were being provided bikes. There's all kinds of difficulties if you live in a small village in India. Trying to get to school is pretty difficult. But he just always found a solution to every problem. Then he was giving them bikes, and even things like there's lots of sexual violence against girls in India, but actually giving them a bike means that they can get safely to the clinic or safely to the school. It was he was incredible. You know, there were kids who were coming out of the slums, and I met a girl the first time I went there who had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and she lived in the slums. She's called Manda, and she'd gone and she'd successfully trained as a nurse, and she was the shining beacon of the slum that she'd come out of. Instead of that stigma which she was going to have to deal with, instead she was, everyone, you know, they were all obsessed with her.
Yeah.
She was like the princess of the slums because she'd become a nurse, and the things he did to support those girls, that this girl Manda told me about, whenever she was getting a hypo, then it was at this point particularly, it was the stigma around type 1 diabetes was huge, so she had to hide from people on her course and from the course leaders that she had type 1 diabetes. And as soon as she started to feel unwell, she'd come in the night quickly to Dr. Pendsey's clinic, and he'd take her in and kind of hide her and help her get back to feeling healthy, and then quickly get her back to her dorm so that nobody knew. It's just an amazing man, what he was doing for those children.
It is amazing, and if anybody, I would advise them to look up that paper. In fact, afterwards I'll look it up and we'll post a link. It is really interesting, and the work that he did, and I think it is that ethos, isn't it, that he looks after the whole person.
Yeah,
And
100%. And
develops them.
his kind of catchphrase was that he wanted to allow them to live with pride and dignity. And I think that was so special, because there is a tendency with charity to be very kind of, I don't know, the whole white martyr thing, oh, giving
Yeah.
money, give them money, whatever. Whereas, you know, give them chocolate, give them money. But I think that thing, that actually what he wanted to give them was what he felt they deserved, and that was to live their lives in this very dignified way, where, you know, they were able to feel pride, and they actually went on to do things in a funny way. It ended up being a bit of a gift, because most of them were going on to have education and do things they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And he felt they needed that to break free of the stigma, what, you know, that the hand which life had dealt them.
Yes. Oh no. An amazing man who unfortunately not so long ago passed, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely passed last year, which was you know, far too young. I think absolute force of nature. I don't think any of us can quite believe that he's gone, to be honest.
But luckily his son has taken over the clinic.
Yeah, that's right, Sankar. And you know, it's really interesting watching that transition, because Sharad Pendsey was very much old India, very kind of I don't know, grand and traditional and eccentric. He loved his cricket, he loved his whiskey, and then you've got Sankar who's coming through, who's more kind of your modern India. He's had elements of Europe in his education. His wife's very cool. You know, they I think they've started doing some Zoom stuff for some of the kids now. It's really interesting to watch that transition of the clinic into a new era.
Yes. Oh no, but it's lovely that the work is continuing. His legacy
Yeah,
is
absolutely. I
continuing
mean,
and still.
Sankit's grown up with it as well, because they live, the family live in a little apartment underneath the clinic, and so I mean, Sankit has literally grown up in that clinic.
Mm,
You know, with children coming in, those children, you know, he's grown up with them, and that's one of the really lovely things. It is such a family affair, and I mean, all of their friends and family in Nagpur are so heavily involved in it, whether charitably or supporting in various different ways. It is really lovely.
yeah, no, it seems like a big family. Whenever you hear anything or see anything from them, they are family.
Yeah, of course. And Seema, I don't know if you've come across Seema. There's a lovely lady
Mhm.
called Seema, and I mean, she spent her whole career there, and she's just so knowledgeable. And she does all the kind of, so the Pensies of sort of the medical side, they do all the that side of it, and then Seema does much more like the holistic kind of nurturing, um, you know, advising families, counselling families when they're very anxious, doing all the kind of dietary stuff. And she's just wonderful as well. You know, she's the most calm woman. I mean, if we come across her, she pops up from time to time. I think I had to
Mhm.
delete her from the Facebook page when I was doing some surprise thing for Dr. Pensey's family, because I thought she might blab, and she still managed to. I know what it was. It was a video I made when for his what would have been his birthday, and she still managed to find it. She's like some kind of little spy. But yeah, no, they're all great.
And I think also with the families and the economics in India, you don't really appreciate it because we do come from a first world country.
Hmm.
Um, I know sort of like the instability some of the families live with financially. It must be really difficult. And like you say, even visiting the clinic and things like that, we might moan here, or I do anyway, that, oh, I have to take half a day off work just for a 20-minute appointment or
Yeah.
something. But to be honest, I'm I was still paid. And
Yeah.
even if I hadn't, I could have, I could have stomached that. That wouldn't have that. Whereas obviously it is, it's not only the medication that is an economic drain on the family
100%.
finances.
Yeah, I think that's you kind of hit the nail on the head. They have something called day workers there, and all of the lower economic families tend to be day workers, where you're literally paid for your day's work. So therefore, yeah, if you're taking the day off to go to the clinic, then you don't get paid for that day, and that's just not really viable for a lot of the families. If they're on such a low wage anyway, they just won't
Yeah,
eat that day. A lot of the families, there aren't many places like this in India, and so many of the families are traveling often overnight. They're doing 2 days of travel there and 2 days of travel back to get there. It's sleeping on in railway stations and things like that too. It's absolutely shocking. And you think, gosh, 4 days of not working. Maybe they have quite big families, and what's the other children meant to do? It's very, very tricky.
and but I suppose one of the not of the incentive of obviously keeping their child well, but I suppose if you've got a family that is in that economic strife, to know that you're having your child able to go to school and
Yeah.
provided so that they can with the equipment they need and things like that, it's also, well, not an investment. That makes it sound so heartless,
Yeah.
and I
No.
don't
No.
mean to,
Yeah.
but they can see, hopefully, a bit like you were saying with the nurse, it's sort of like investing in the family as well,
Absolutely, yeah, and I
if they
think
can
because it
do
because
that.
they go, and it often does almost go a little bit wider as well. So there are things
Mm,
where they help families out if they think a family's in particularly unstable accommodation, or they'll give them advice and support them, and because ultimately that's the best thing for the child. You don't want a child who's got type 1 diabetes in a family where their house is about to fall into a river. Like
yeah.
literally, they will try and help them out and give them advice, and they're so well connected that they'll always be able to find people to connect them with. um, and I think the clinic it does have that family feel when you're in there, and they have people who are making food so that families who've travelled from a long way have something to eat. And yeah, it is amazing. But I think it's very much what you said is going out to. I first went out when I was 21, and I travelled a lot by that point, but going into some of those very, very poor families, and it's not a particularly it's becoming more industrialized now, but when I first went there, it just wasn't an area that people outside of the area went to. And it is harrowing how poor. I saw a dead guy just lying on the floor in one of the slums
Oh.
the first time I went. um, and and to think how hard it is for the families who live in those places, and how poor the sanitation is, and all those additional challenges. I mean, all the things which um, we try and help them with, things like it used to be. Well, this is a really interesting one actually. And when I talked about Dr. Pendsey being really entrepreneurial, one obviously you guys understand the difficulties of storing insulin in a very hot country where there's
Mm,
no electricity. And so he had a fun challenge. He gave the students at the university in Nagpur and said, "I want you to design a device which can be cheaply produced, which keeps insulin cool or cool enough." And they designed a pot with two walls, and you can fill the inner wall with water. And that for a long time was what the families were given, to keep the insulin cool, in those hot temperatures. But now the great thing is that a lot of those areas do have electricity, even if it's not the family's home. Maybe a neighbour has it, and we can give them fridges, and
mm.
they can do it that way. But it's always just having to think around the edges of all the different things, which maybe we don't have to think about so much here.
And I think that's the lovely thing. And I know I love it when you hear the different stories and the way things work out there. And I think one of the things that struck me was like during the pandemic, because of obviously movement was curtailed, economically work dried up for a lot of
Yeah.
people. economically, and it was just hearing what they were doing to make sure the children would still get their medication. So
Yeah.
hand delivering things, or
Yeah.
making sure that local pharmacies were paid so that the parents could pick up the insulin and things from there.
Yeah.
Supporting families who obviously their work had just disappeared,
Yeah.
giving
Yeah, they did
additional
grants. That's
grants.
right. Yeah, I'd even
Yeah,
forgotten that. So your memory's better than mine. But yes, it is, and those sort of innovations. I think that's what I love so much about what they do is that they are so innovative, and Dr. Pendsey
mm,
was so innovative. He was always one step ahead. It was always kind of this huge problem, like obviously with pandemic, this huge horrendous problem, and then he's just like, yeah, no problem, got it sorted. I thought of a solution, and those innovations, some of it stuck. So a lot of the children come less frequently now to the
mm,
clinic, and it can be managed more in a more sort of satellite way, because obviously another big problem out there is, and it sounds awful, but these families are super desperate. You don't want to necessarily be giving money to the families to purchase insulin, because unfortunately that might not be how it's spent.
yeah,
Alcoholism is a huge problem out there, because parents are really poor and really desperate. So there's a lot of problem with alcohol abuse, and also just desperation for food,
yeah,
or other things. And so finding a system like that, where actually there are relationships with local pharmacies, has been something which has stayed now since the pandemic. And it does mean the children visit the clinic a bit less often, which is definitely much less ideal in terms of health management, but then balanced off against them not getting medication at all. I think
yeah.
it's probably better.
Oh no, it was just I remember during the pandemic at different points there was like a solution, like, oh well,
Yeah.
they're driving however many miles to
Yeah.
deliver insulin, and it was like, oh, they've banned all travel
Yeah.
outside, whatever. Well,
I remember now. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do something else then. We'll break the rule in some other way. We'll find a way.
exactly.
It's so great. Oh, here, no, we'll walk. It's fine. We'll just all walk. Okay, yeah, great. You do that. He's just, yeah, he was an amazing guy. And they're also, all the staff at the clinic are just were so in his spell, and they'll be so in Sankert's spell as well. They'll just do anything for him.
So you obviously visited and produced a radio show
Yeah, radio documentary. Yeah.
about his work, and so from doing that and seeing the work he did, how did that lead to you thinking, I'll set up a charity?
Oh
Why
gosh,
don't
I ask
I?
myself this all the time. Yeah, one of those hobbies which got a bit out of control. I think what happened was I was so inspired by what I saw when I was out there, and it was particularly kind of, you hit me on the head a bit with, it was all the other stuff. It wasn't really just a charity. I've done a lot of charity stuff before that, but I was just so inspired by the kind of lifelong vision of it. And I said to him when I was out there, how much does it cost to send a kid to school for a year? On average, obviously it
Yeah,
varies. And he said 40 quid a year. And I just walked away from it thinking, gosh, I can definitely make some money to £40 a year is nothing. I was like, gosh,
yeah,
if I even if I can send 5 kids to school for a year, then that'll be something. And just started organising little parties basically. I used to do pub quizzes and hog roast and various other, big
I
charity
went to
ball.
one
And
of your pub quizzes.
did you?
Well, I think
With
I'm
me
not sure if it.
there?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if it was you as well. It was in a pub
Oh,
somewhere
yeah.
near Liverpool Street, if I remember
Oh,
correctly,
yes, it
in
probably
like a
was. Yeah.
basement,
Yes.
and we
You
had to
see,
make
did you meet?
something
You
out of
didn't meet me.
newspaper and
Oh,
sellotape.
yep,
We
that
were
was
robbed, is
definitely.
all I'm saying.
Oh, that was. We always had the news. I completely. Your memory is incredible. I completely forgot the newspaper ads. Yeah, that was. So I mean, I don't even know how on earth you ended up at one of my pub quizzes. Is that how out of control they managed? So did you meet me? Have you met
Well,
me?
I don't know because it was many years ago,
Hmm.
and I try to think it was Elizabeth and
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah. Yeah. That was
so
him.
I
Yeah.
know, I'm not sure if it's through them I heard of it or whatever,
Oh.
but
Yeah.
a couple of us turned up and there was this thing, and I remember it being for children in India and
Yeah.
this, that, and the other.
Oh,
And
that's
it was sort of
amazing.
after that I sort of read a bit more, and it was a little while after that I sort of contacted. Well, I sort of supported you on and off. Do not get me wrong, but
Yeah.
became
But
a bit
that's where you
more.
came from. That's amazing. I did not know that. That's very cool. But yes, it probably gives you a bit of a scale of how out of control it all got. I used to honestly, I think it started off as literally, maybe 20 friends doing pub quiz, and then somehow turned into these big parties for 200 people. And I think then off the back of that, probably in the same way that you came across it or heard about it, maybe people would tell people who happened to know people who
Yeah.
had type 1 diabetes, and then it just kind of spread, and I started getting emails. And I mean, my initial thing is that the first year you can't set up as a charity until you've made £5,000, and then I somehow just made £5,000. I think I made £7,000 in the first year, and now we turn
Wow.
over about 35,000 a year.
Wow.
And that's just all completely voluntarily, with people giving up their time to help out. And we just kind of, you know what, we're not the most professional or glamorous outfit, but we just keep it ticking over and do what we can. And that's always been my philosophy with it. Just do what we
I
can.
think you're selling yourself short there, Lucy, saying that you're not a professional at what you do, because I think you are very good at what you do. Because you've kept it running this long, and that is quite a turnover.
I think it's we've been going a long time now. It's about 13 or 14 years now, which is crazy. I can't believe it. But no, it's just it's evolved. It went from just being something which was a bunch of friends. When I came back, I told some of my friends, and they thought it sounded great. So and I do know people who have type 1 diabetes, and obviously they thought it was even more great. And it kind of evolved from there, and then it kind of shifted actually more into the type 1 diabetes community, because I think people, particularly people who perhaps have a child or have type 1 diabetes themselves, could really relate to what those families were experiencing, and that kind of naturally worked quite well with. Well, actually, I'll tell you, the sponsorship scheme was an interesting one, because that's something which Dr. Pendsey had really championed locally, and also a little bit internationally.
Before we talk about that, so through the Pendsey Trust, there is it's because I know the story and you know the story. Do you know, like, it's like there are certain parts, so you've got different strands to the work you do, but one of them is through the Pendsey Trust. There are people, like I have a child that I sponsor, so I pay a monthly amount, and that helps pay for education and some of their healthcare and sort of needs like that. And it just goes out of my bank account, and there you are, and it keeps somebody else alive. I think having type 1, like you say, you just can't imagine what it must be like for those families or those people. And so whatever you can do, it's amazing that you just think, you can correct me, this is it £16, £17 a month?
I think it was 16. I don't know if I can't remember if we've moved it up slightly. But yes, it was always £16 a month.
Yeah. That you're keeping somebody alive, and you're giving them prospects, you're giving them an education, and helping them be able to live a productive, like you say, a life that they wouldn't have that opportunity, and to earn their own money and then help others. So you started. So did you say that Dr. Pendsey was thinking about that?
It was already, he already was doing it. He already had some contacts with various other people who'd probably come to him in sort of random ways, like I had. I was a lady in Austria who's been involved with him for a really long time, and I think a little bit maybe Canada and Australia, so when I was out there, we went and met a family who lived out in the countryside, very, very poor family, and this little girl, I think he'd kind of thought maybe that might be one for me and my family too. But he'd kind of pinpointed her as a good one.
Didn't miss a trick.
And so no, exactly. He was like, "Oh, here's this girl," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, whatever. We'll do it." And it's a crazy thing. She's 18 now. Which is amazing, and having followed her trajectory. But actually, I had no idea how popular that would be, the opportunity to actually sponsor a child. And I feel like there's a lot of controversy around sponsorship, child sponsorship, and I found it really interesting seeing both sides of it. I think that the the kind of controversy around it is kind of around whether it is this sort of white martyr sort of
Yeah.
thing. But actually, having seen it on the ground, and I've been out there quite a lot of times now, maybe 4 times, and I think having seen it from the other side, certainly in the way this one's being run, I don't think it is. It's not generic. It literally is a particular child and a particular family in the UK, and that gives the family. And I don't know if it is because it's specific to the fact the type 1 diabetes element rather than just generally like help my family, but it gives this sense of not being alone anymore, because those families feel like another family is kind of, and that works both ways actually. I think a lot of the English families feel the same, but you're almost connected to another family who are going through the same thing as you. And those families see their sponsor families in the UK as family. They have, if they people, often sponsors send out photos and letters and things like that, and they have them all up on the walls in their houses. It's so cute. And I feel like that gives them a lot of strength, knowing, I've spoken a little bit about stigma out there surrounding type 1 diabetes, but someone in another country being like, you're going to be okay, you've got this, that's extremely empowering to them. So yeah, I think the child sponsorship's amazing, and seeing some of our first sponsored children really growing up and flourishing now. From when we first took them on, some of them were so sort of scrawny and not doing so well.
Yeah.
And then when you see them, they're kind of going off to college and they're getting top grades, or even whatever it is they want to do. They don't even have to be top of the class. Maybe they've set up a little business or something. It's just amazing.
And I think that's one of the things that I love about the charity. It is this ethos that you're not making people dependent. You're actually giving them the ability to be independent.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it's about, isn't it? And that idea of the pride and whatever else,
Yeah.
and what they're doing, and whatever that is. I think our little sponsor girl is I think she's just going to set up. She's going to make cakes or something like that, and that's going to be great for her. That's perfect. That's what that's going to work really well for her and her family and her village. And we're able to help her now, and that's there's so many different angles to what they do out there and what we support them with, or what we've been able to do thanks to all the generosity of people in the UK. But there's a child sponsorship scheme, then there's things like we've done small business grants. And that's I think
that's amazing. The small business,
it's
sort
cool,
of like
isn't it?
buying somebody a sewing machine.
Yeah, just so cool.
And then they've got a job for life.
It's just amazing, isn't it? And I know Dr. Pendsey used to always, I don't think they did it last year because he was poorly, but usually he's got some sort of very, very high ranking business friends in Nagpur, and they often mentor, but it's so cute, mentor the young people who are setting up little businesses and kind of help them get going and look at finances and things like that. So I think our Nandini, who's our sponsor girl, she's going to I think that it will be things like just buying her the equipment to bake cakes with, and it literally costs almost nothing, and that's going to empower her and enable her to do something she really wants to do, which is an amazing gift to be able to give someone.
Yes. Oh no, it's amazing. And then there've been other sort of schemes and initiatives that I know are sort of bubbling under the surface, like you were saying. There's been times when you've been collecting for bikes, so that you can send a load of bikes over there, which I think, again, like you were saying, you just don't appreciate how important that must be to somebody. If they live in a village, it gives them the chance to be able to get to school, but also safely to school.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I mean, that was one of the funniest things we've done as a charity. I think it was the third time I went out there, and what we did was, it was a bit of a mad plan where we decided we wanted to ship out 100 bikes. I don't know if you remember this, but we basically decided we wanted to ship out because we knew the bike scheme was going really well. We realised it was amazing, and it was helping the kids so much, because actually there's no point paying for them to go to school if they couldn't get there.
Yeah.
A lot of the time the roads are all so bad, particularly in monsoon season. The roads just wash away, so they can't actually even get on a bus because the buses can't get there. And like I mentioned before, there's problems with girls and sexual violence if they're walking. So we realised how good and how powerful the bike scheme was, and so we just had this crazy thing where we decided, it was the Rotary Club donated 100 bikes.
Hmm.
and then used bikes, and then some. It was a charity where prisoners learned to refurbish bikes, and they refurbished them. And then a shipping company who my uncle knew, he managed to persuade them to ship them out there, and that was a bit. I mean, that was a bit crazy. We don't do that anymore. But it was a one time. I think something like 92 of the 100 made it there or something, and the others all got taken as bribes at various points. But no, that bike scheme, we still do that, and often
Yeah.
there'll be a case, and we'll often just say to thank it, just let us know if we get a new sponsor child on the books who needs a bike, and we'll sort it out. But yeah, that's definitely a really important element of what we do.
So this is a question for me because I've never really thought of it like that.
Mm.
So do all the sponsor children get bikes, or is it just if they live in an area
Yeah,
where
just
it's necessary?
yeah, usually it depends because some of them live in really urban areas and then they don't
Yeah.
really need them. And actually maybe wouldn't be particularly safe if you've been in the centre of Nagpur. You'd understand what I mean by that. It's a bit, be a bit like driving through, I don't know, Leicester Square or something.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of the children do live rurally or semi-rurally, and they always do an assessment when a new child or a new family joins, and they'll look at kind of the facilities the child has. So things like insulin storage, for example, they'll be looking, is there an obvious place for the child to store insulin? Do they have electricity? Do they have a fridge? If they don't have either of those things, is there a nearby restaurant or house where we can make an arrangement with them that because that they often do that, they'll store it in if there's a little cafe where they're
Hmm.
living or something. But they'll do an assessment and they'll work out what the child needs to be able to kind of flourish.
Yeah, because then there've been other times when you've had initiatives to try and get fridges,
Yes, yeah,
to
exactly, and that all
finance
kind of came
fridges.
exactly, yeah. So that all kind of came at once as well as electricity started to come in
Mm,
more because these children do live a lot of them in what I would describe really as slums. I don't think there's much a nicer way to describe it. They're almost semi-temporary dwellings,
hmm.
but they do a lot of them do now. I mean, I'm not sure how safe they are because I've seen the wires, but they do seem to have electricity, and so that became a new opportunity of, oh, actually there's families who haven't previously been able to have fridges but now they can, and actually then that kind of spun off into something even better, that some of those children who we could provide them a fridge, and actually it's great for the family because now they can store their food safely, because
Yeah,
previously maybe they just had meat out on the side, and obviously it's not great for a child with type 1 diabetes to get really bad stomach problems.
yeah. Oh no, it's and like you say, if you've got a fridge there, then it helps out them, but it probably helps out neighbours and
Yeah,
whatever as well.
exactly.
It's
People
a whole
store, and
community.
yeah, absolutely. And then it just adds to that thing of, we're trying to get these kids to be respected by their society. And actually, oh, if they're going to be able to store people's food in their fridge,
Yeah,
that's great. And actually, even there have been cases where then it's enabled the family to set up little mini businesses, by putting they've maybe set up a little mini food business selling, I don't know, milk or whatever,
yeah.
um, but from the fridge. So it's got so many opportunities, but by giving a family a fridge.
I know it's sort of silly. It makes sense when you think about it, but you don't often think about these things. And it's also a was it? Oh, I think it was in the pandemic, but I could be wrong there. Frio pouches as
Oh
well for the
yeah,
children,
yeah,
so that they can keep their insulin cool. Because
yeah,
obviously it gets ridiculously hot there in
yeah.
the summer.
Yeah, no, that was
Um,
that was again a really great initiative, and Frio, we were really lucky because Frio donated them, and that was just an idea from one of our supporters, and she kind of drove the whole thing, and that's what I love about the Pendsey Trust is because I think it's always been my ethos. We're not, I personally I really dislike these charities where people are pulling huge salaries. I know at times it's necessary with the huge charities, but
yeah,
that was never what I wanted to do with the Pendsey Trust. I always wanted to keep it quite kind of supporter run. And so at times it's great. People kind of dip in and want to, they'll have an idea and I'll just say, yeah, run with it, so long as it's not too completely bonkers.
yeah,
But I think that was a supporter just said, oh, my son's got a Frio pouch. It's really great. It's worked really well for him. And I said, yeah, go for it if you want to try and get them to donate some. And they did donate. They did donate them, which was incredible. And I think she then fundraised, but we did it via the Pendsey Trust for the shipping for them. And
Yeah,
people were amazing. And that's what I love is people do step up. There's been a couple of times where we've made an ask. There was a little boy who needed an operation quite
yeah.
urgently, and do you know what? I put it on the Facebook page, and I think within 48 hours we'd covered the cost of it. It was just madness.
And I think that is the nice thing, because I think even as a supporter, I don't know the other supporters, but it does feel like there's a gang of you that
Yeah,
somebody can help somewhere.
yeah,
And there's a myriad of ways that people support you, aren't there? Because I know there's the sponsorship, which
yeah.
is regular payments,
Uh-huh.
but you do read about wacky things
Oh
like
yes.
somebody who's been swimming ridiculous distances
Oh
recently
yeah.
for sponsorship, and running and
Yeah.
climbing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Just do whatever you want. Do whatever you want,
yeah,
so long as you're
or
not
knit,
putting.
or knit
Oh,
toys.
knitting toys, lots of coffee mornings. I think I love my favorite one recently was the one we did for it would have been Dr. Pensey's birthday. It would have been his 70th birthday this year, and he was such a, I don't know, he just got a twinkle in his eye, that guy. So I decided it was the best thing we could do would be to celebrate his 70th birthday for him, and just invite people to do that in the way they wanted to. And I just loved it. I had got so many lovely photos of people just raising a glass. I said, raise a glass in whatever way you want. And it was a Rotary Club, and they were all having a garden party. And it was just delightful. And on Twitter, people even just like raising a cup of tea. It was so nice. And I think that's kind of what I love about the Pendsey Trust. It's all kind of weird and quirky.
Yes, there's lots of different bits and pieces going on, and it has got such wide support. And it's over the years, it is quite strange, because now when you mention it, quite often people have heard of you.
Mhm.
There'll be somebody who has, whereas
Yeah.
originally, sort of there. So it's sort of spreading the word, which is always good, because even if people can't donate money, just spreading the word about
Oh
what's
gosh,
happening
yeah.
and whatever,
100%.
it just
100%.
keeps you there in the forefront if an opportunity comes up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing. That have been people who've been kind of in the background for a while, and then suddenly they've decided they would want to do a marathon, and then they think of us, or they've got a birthday and they decided they want to do donations, and we get a lot of those kind of one-off things from people who've maybe been lurking around in the background for a long time, and that's really lovely when you're someone's first choice for when that moment does come.
Yes, yeah. And I think that is it, because every little counts, and all the money does go to doing good works. That's the nice thing with it being volunteers, although probably not so nice for you who are the main volunteers,
Oh
who are
yeah.
spending all
Do
your
you know what?
time chasing, organising.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm certainly a lot less active with it than, but now I've got two babies. But it kind of ebbs and flows, and we always get new injections of energy from new people who find out about us. And that's the other thing. People donate money, but obviously people donating time is also really helpful. If people just say, oh, actually, I've got, for example, my husband gets some time to do voluntary, like a volunteering day at
Yeah.
work. That's incredible, because then I just pass over a bunch of admin. Like, okay, can you make me some leaflets or something? And that's just as helpful, really.
Yeah, I do think that. I know the different ways that it's done, and the help, because it is amazing. I just keep saying this, it's amazing, it's amazing, and doing that. So over the years, because I was reading a few bits and pieces before doing this, you sort of, I suppose I didn't realize the scope of it, of
Uh-huh.
how many children
Yeah,
yourselves as part of it and the Dream Trust have actually helped,
yeah, it's
because
mad,
it's
isn't it?
hundreds, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I can't even remember the fit. I think it's 1,000 now. It's over 1,000.
I was about to say
Children.
that, but I
Yeah, I think
wasn't
it's
quite
over a
sure, and I was thinking,
thousand.
oh.
I don't know the exact figure, but my understanding it's over 1,000, which was the latest figure, which is just, I mean, it's absolutely mind blowing. I think last time I went out to India, they organised an event where they invited all the sponsored children from the who were sponsored by families in the UK through the Pendsey Trust, and I went to it, and at that point we had 100 children. We've tried to stick close to that figure. I kind of sometimes let let a few new ones in, but we kind of keep it around that figure because I think it's manageable. And that is a lot of children. When I saw them with their families, I was like, oh, okay, there's quite a lot of you, and you're all very perky and very kind of lively and energetic and friendly. It was crazy.
But it is amazing to think that one person just with, right, we need to do something, and a bit like yourself, sort of like, right, we need to do something.
Yeah.
That can help so many people.
Yeah, it is a snowball effect, really.
Yeah, sort of very practical, and like you say, where there's a will, there's a way.
I think so. That's I found him immensely inspiring, and I feel so grateful that I took that crazy leap of faith. I mean, I would never do that now. I'm far too anxious a human. But at that point, the sort of crazy 21-year-old, like, yeah, I'm going to jump on a plane to India and just go see this unknown doctor. Like, I had no idea what I was rocking up to. I thought he's had such a huge impact on me and how I've lived my life, and sort of the level of respect I have for him is enormous.
Yes, yeah, no, he was a great man. He was a great
I'm
man
sad
and a
you didn't.
character.
I'm sad you didn't get to meet him. Actually, he's hilarious.
No, but I saw different things and I've heard
Yeah,
stories.
yeah. You knew enough.
You get an idea about a
Yeah.
person, don't you?
Sanket's very sensible. It's quite funny. It's quite different to his dad.
That sounds a bit like Absolutely Fabulous.
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely that vibe. And I think his wife's definitely got a bit of fire going on. So I think they'll be a great team.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if people were interested in finding out more about you,
Yeah.
where would be the best place for them to have a look?
The best resource we have as a charity, because to be honest with you, our website's pretty naff. Like, probably should redo that at some point. But on the list of kind of,
Things to
time
do.
versus, in terms of who really uses websites anymore. So our website is kind of all there, but I don't think it's particularly pretty. It was at the time we made it, but I just think things have moved on a bit since then. But I think the best resource we have, which again is a really cool story, is on YouTube we have some videos, and they were created for us by a retired head teacher whose grandson has type 1 diabetes. And so he found out about us, and I think he emailed me, and it happened that at that point I lived sort of within 15 minutes of him. So I went and met him, because he likes going and making films for charities as a hobby.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was just incredible. He was really inspired by what we were doing, what Dr. Pendsey was doing, and he went out to India and made a bunch of films for us. And I think they are the best illustration of what we do, because it brings it to life. You don't want to read my boring text or look at photographs. You want to watch videos, and I think those videos which Roy created for us, they show a lot of the different elements of the work. And I think that's probably that. If I was going to tell anyone to look at any resource, Facebook page occasionally has stuff going on, but I think the videos bring it to life in a really lovely way.
Yeah, and I think it also brings out. I'm trying to remember the videos, so I might be thinking of another video. But I think some of the videos that you see, it's like the personal relationships between children and their sponsors.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but that's
and
definitely covered in there.
Specific gifts that have been sent out or
Yeah.
whatever, because there's the notorious cricket bat.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
I know. It's so cute. I find some of the photos really cute. We get photos over from India sometimes of when children open their presents from the sponsor.
Yeah.
It could be a bit hit and miss whether we get photos or not, but I just find it absolutely adorable when you see kind of like an accessorize something or other in India with a very happy looking little girl. It's so cute.
Yes. Oh no, it is wonderful. And anybody who did wish to raise money or donate, you're on Just Giving, aren't you?
Yeah,
As a
to be honest with
charity.
you, it's not my favourite fundraising platform.
No.
The first one we fundraised through turned out to be some kind of scam who stole a load of people's money, which was horrific. It was a really big scandal at the time. And then BT Donate was great, but they decided to close down, so we lost them as well. So now we're stuck with Just Giving.
Yeah.
Which
But
has
it
been annoying.
is a way to.
It's a way to get, yeah, it is. It's a way to get money. We just get frustrated because they take a percentage of a chunky percentage of the money. But it is in one sense, particularly for recurring payments, it's really useful for us as a small charity because that's all set up for us and we don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So there are numerous ways. If anybody fancies doing something, anybody who's ever bought anything knitted from me, and quite a few people have now, as you'll know by the amount of money.
Yeah,
all the money has gone
I know my little boy's got one as well. He's got a little
and
one.
and when we were speaking, I was thinking, oh, I never did send another one.
Oh, it's fine. I think they both steal everything from each other, but it's fine. He's not Brody's not quite there yet, but Barnaby's definitely got one.
Yes, various bits and pieces, but there are various things people have done. So if anybody were interested, I'm biased, but I think for a reason, that it's an amazing charity. So was there anything else you wanted to chat about or bring up, or?
I don't think so. I feel like I've talked at you a lot, so apologies for that. It's obviously, as you can tell, it's something I feel so passionately about,
Yes.
and that it's been a huge part. It's been a huge part of my life. A very strange curveball which got thrown at me as someone. I don't actually have type 1 diabetes, but I do feel immensely moved by the whole thing.
And I think that was one of the things, because when I approached Lucy to be on Diabetes Chat, and it was afterwards when I was sort of thinking, oh, I need to write an intro, and I was thinking, I don't think Lucy's got type 1, but I didn't know 100%. Do you know, it's one of those where you think,
yeah, I know.
I feel like I know.
I mean, I feel like I know so many people now who do, or whose lives have been touched by it in some way. But I feel like I kind of do in some sense. It's very odd. I swear, if you looked at my contacts on Facebook or on here, then you'd probably think I did, because such a large number of them are of the type 1 diabetes community. But
well, yeah,
that
was it. It was just sort of, and I know I was messaging Lucy, and I was saying, oh, by the way, do you have diabetes?
You're like, do you or someone else, or are you just really random? No, I think it was. I mean, I saw what my aunt and uncle went through when my cousin was diagnosed, and she was very poorly when she was little, and then they found out that she had type 1 diabetes, and I saw that. So I have the sort of personal lived experience in that sense, but really, I think. That sent me on that curveball, but I was really just inspired by the cause of somebody doing something to make other people's lives better, which and then it brought me into this amazing community, and I've met so many amazing people through it. So I feel kind of lucky for that.
Oh no, it's I think it's a nice community to.
Such a nice community. It's such a nice community, and I love how interconnected it is, and how enthusiastic and passionate it is as well. It's amazing. I feel so lucky. If I was in any other community trying to run a charity, I don't think it would be like this.
Oh no, I think that's it, and I think it's got such a lovely ethos. I love the ethos of it. As you will know, I'm definitely not wanting to be the white savior or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm sort of honoured to sponsor.
Yeah, and
I say child, and she's not a child anymore.
And she's not. Is she? How old is she now? She's 19.
No, she must be in her 20s.
Oh no, really?
Early 20s. I think.
Yeah,
I was trying to work that out. Because I was trying to remember how old I can't remember how long I've been sponsoring, but I sponsored a bit older child.
Yeah, which is a really amazing thing to do, and also really important. And I almost think in some ways can be more meaningful, because there's more you can do at that age to support them.
Well, I think also from my own point of view, just personally, I didn't want to take on a very young child and then think at some point in the future. Do you know what I mean? That
you don't know what
the longevity of it.
Yeah,
but I mean, I can't see me not sponsoring her, and I'm
Yeah.
very happy to carry on even until she's whatever age.
Yeah, until she's able, and that's what I love, because now some of our earlier, lots of our, from when we very first started out, a lot of them are probably getting quite old now, but nobody seems to have any intention of stopping until they're
Well,
ready.
she's at university. Yeah,
And
at
we have had some
university.
who've graduated out, which is great. Some of the early ones
Yeah.
who are now self-supporting, which is, I mean, amazing. And then it's great because those sponsors have been like, oh, I want another one. Right, okay, we'll start you off again. Back you go, back around you go. But
Oh
no,
no.
and
But
that's the other cool thing. You can go out and visit. You can go out and visit.
I'm just not that. I'm just not that brave.
I appreciate that. I don't think I'll be going back out anytime soon with these two little ones, but it is possible, and actually quite a lot of sponsors have gone out and done that. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's an incredible experience to go and visit them, their home, and it comes back to what you said, in that it's feeling like a two-way, like a more the sponsor families in the UK feel that they have gained a lot and learned a lot, and feel very grateful to those families, and it's hard to articulate that, but what I think you probably said it much more eloquently than I did, and that's a really lovely thing to the two-wayness of it, maybe more than a traditional child sponsorship scheme.
And I think within the diabetes community, and definitely people who, and I'm not discounting parents or whatever, but I think anybody who's a parent who meets another parent of a child with type 1 has a connection. Anybody
Yeah.
I meet who's got diabetes, we automatically have a connection, because we get
Yeah.
things that people don't, because they've not lived through them. And so it doesn't matter where in the world we are, I have a connection with that lady, with that
Yeah.
girl. She, she's done amazing things. She is doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And but we have a connection as outside of that, which
Yeah, no, absolutely.
is
It's strange, and I think that's very evident in the closeness of those connections. And there's one guy within our sponsor family community, and he describes the boy he sponsors as being his brother, and he means that. He describes him as my sponsor brother, and they've been out to India and met him, and the sports child did them a painting for their wedding, and that's up. It's huge. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely grotesque, but it's proudly displayed across their living room wall. So and that's incredible. And he describes him as his brother. It's pretty meaningful.
Oh no, there's definitely a connection there, and you're now making me feel guilty. I've not sent a gift in
Oh no, it's
ages
not.
and ages and ages.
You know what? It's the photos. They love the photos. Just crack a photo over there, and they'll actually. They honestly, they're up on the walls. It's so lovely when you go to their homes, and they're kind of really proud to show you. I'm the other way around though, because the English families are like, oh, I've got a photo of my sponsor child, and they're on the mantelpiece.
Yes. Oh
It's
no,
very
it's
cute.
so nice. Every so often, you periodically, randomly, you'll get an email through with a picture and an update on what's been happening, and you're avidly reading.
I know, like, what's happened? I know, I feel like it's like school reports, and some of them are like, they haven't done well at school. I'm like, no, I can't send this out. I've actually got some I need to send out. I've got some have come through, so I'll have to get onto that, because I know how much, and I love it. And the family's always so happy and excited to get them.
Yes.
Even when I love it. They're very naughty. They like stealing things from other children, and they've not done well at school. I'm like, okay, I need a positive spin on this, please.
Oh no, but there are also other things, because there are times when somebody's not been well or something like that,
exactly.
and you just think, oh, I'm glad they're doing a bit better. And
Yeah, no, it's real. I'm not gonna lie. This is real stuff. There is no, as I said, there's no glitz and glamour in this. It is real.
Yes, no, doing that. Well, thank you so much for
No,
joining
not
us,
at all. That was
Lucy.
really fun. Thank you so much, and
No,
thank
it
you
was.
for listening to me chat.
Yes. No. And I hope it enables more people to find out about the Pendsey Trust, and if they wish to spread the word, or
come check us out. Watch our YouTube videos. See what you think.
And see these raucous children.
Oh, I know, they're amazing children. Amazing, crazy children.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much.
because
All
I know
right
you're
then.
busy. Yeah.
No,
So
I'm not.
take
I'm
care.
going to go and sleep a little.
Yes.
Right. See you later, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy,
All
for
right then.
joining us.
Bye.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. All right. Bye.
Bye.